North Carolina's ban on abortions after 20 weeks is now back in effect after a federal court reinstated the law following the end of Roe v. Wade. Doctors could face up to 10 years in prison for violating it. The state law includes an exception for medical emergency. WRAL's Capitol Bureau Chief Lora Leslie reports some doctors say what qualifies as a medical emergency is not clear.
North Carolina's 20-week abortion ban makes no exceptions for rape or incest, but it does have an exception for a medical emergency. In 2015, lawmakers made that more restrictive. State law now defines a medical emergency as a condition that makes an abortion necessary to save the mother's life, or for which a delay will create serious risk of substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function, not including any psychological or emotional conditions. Duke School of Medicine obstetrics professor Dr. Beverly Gray was one of the plaintiffs who challenged the law in 2016, saying it's too vague to enforce.
There are cases where it is very clear this is a medical emergency, but there are other situations where it's not, black or white. We can't say, okay, this is absolutely an emergency and we can care for you in the situation. There's a lot of gray area in medicine.
The law gives doctors plenty of reason to second guess themselves. The wrong decision can mean 10 years in prison, as well as a civil lawsuit from the patient or family.
When you wait for someone to be sick enough, that really puts their lives at risk. It pushes them further into their pregnancy. It puts them at further risk of complications.
Grace says abortions after 20 weeks account for less than 1% of the procedures in North Carolina, but they're often very challenging cases. Some patients have illnesses like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis that can worsen during pregnancy.
They may not have a flare of their illness until they're further along in the pregnancy, and so they start developing kidney failure. But is that enough? Is the kidney failure severe enough? Do they have to be on dialysis?
Patients may also learn during that same time period that their child has a defect that's incompatible with life. Lethal birth defects are not covered by the medical exception, Gray says. So now that North Carolina's ban is back in place, they'll have to travel out of state if they choose to end that pregnancy. Lora Leslie, WRAL News, Raleigh.
Now, state lawmakers could make changes to the abortion law next year. Republican leaders have already said they intend to take up the issue in 2023 when they hope to have a veto-proof majority.